Hey everyone, my name is REDRUP. You're listening to the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode I'm joined by Damien Douleur of the Requiem. We talk about their debut album, A Cure to Poison the World, choosing to rebrand from their previous name, L'exquisite Douleur, how Resident Evil inspires the record's loose concept, finding the sweet spot between influence and imitation, and loads more. Now, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast and you want to show your support, there's a few ways that you can do that. Number one, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It takes just a few seconds and it really does help. Number two, share this on your social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or number three, if you want to go the extra mile, you can pay a little bit each month to join the Patreon, and in return you'll get access to episodes early along with some other perks, or you can pick up some merch from the store. All the links to that and the podcast socials where you can follow us can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Damien Douleur of the Requiem. How you doing, man?
Chilling, man.
Chilling. Yeah, you were just saying you watched the recent Willy Wonka film and it's just, it's not sitting with me.
Yeah, no. The last good movie I saw was the Godzilla one, -1.
I've not even seen that.
That one's amazing. That's a cinematic masterpiece right there.
Yeah, I think the last time I went to the cinema was, it might have been to see the Barbie film, which I thought was
the Barbie movie. Oh shit! Did you see Oppenheimer?
I didn't see Oppenheimer. No.
Damn.
I want to watch it, but I was just like,
yeah, that's a double feature right there.
Yeah, I couldn't at the time. I was like, I can't sit in the cinema for 3 hours. I just can't do it.
Yeah, no. I feel you on that.
I will watch it in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah,
I'm being on my couch for 3 hours, so that's fine. But yeah, I'll get around to it. But yeah, let's talk about the band and obviously the new album, the debut album, A Cure to Poison the World. You know, we'll dive into the actual meat of the album in a moment, but just to start off, how are you feeling about finally getting this out in the world for other people to hear?
It's a crazy feeling. It's like having a baby almost. I keep like going back to it to see anything changed, but obviously not. But it's a weird feeling. It's very, very odd to me. I've never put out any body of work before, like as big as an album. So it's very exciting, a bit scary, but I hope that everyone sees it for what we wanted it to be and appreciates it the way that we appreciate it. I think that's a very diverse record, and I think that there's something in it for anyone.
Well, being your first kind of body of work, I imagine, when you were working on it and just before you sent off those tracks as like, that's done and dusted. I bet you were just kind of, do I need to do this like little tweak here? Am I happy with this bit here?
Too much, man. Yeah. That overthinking waves hit you hard. But I don't know. I guess that the core things that we wanted to put in it are there. And so we're proud of it. And I'm really happy with the way that we made it. Like, the whole recording process was wonderful. So yeah, no, it's been nothing but a blessing for me.
Yeah. Well, before we kind of scratch away further at the album, I just want to take a few steps back into like, you're still a relatively new band. So just kind of like how the band started. So I think, did the band kind of begin in 2019? Is that right?
Yeah, 2020, we put out our first song. It was A Cure to Poison the World, the single. And then we put out a couple more singles until we started kind of creating a team around people that were fucking with us and that believed in what we wanted to do. And then as soon as we started kind of like getting more serious about what we wanted to do and believing in ourselves more, we thought that it was time to look for a label. So started, label shopping, and we found perfect fit for us and Fearless. But yeah, I mean, we were a band before under a different name for about a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Right. Well, I guess like trying to get the band off the ground in 2019 at the time would have felt like, this is a great opportunity. And then 2020 knocks on the door and it's brought COVID with it. And I guess that kind of just made things so much more difficult than it needed to be.
Yeah, that should hit everyone equally. But I think for shows, it was a little extra because, the whole idea of having too many people in one room was just like out of the question by that point. And I think that there was a couple clandestine shows that we started going to, and we're like, oh man, this could get bad easily. We don't want to be part of these shows, but we did want to put out music. So, we tried putting as much music out as we could. And then as soon as it felt okay, at least in Florida to do it, which I think was a little earlier than the rest of the world, because Florida's very like careless. We played our first show back, and the reception was amazing. Like there's kids that knew lyrics to our songs, and it was just so sick to see that. We were like, fuck, we need to do this like more often now. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was that time like for you? I mean, not just you as a person, but the band. You can't tour because no one's touring. Did you kind of take that time to maybe like take stock of how you want to launch this band, or was it
Yeah,
like
100%. Yeah, we it gave us time to reflect on exactly what we wanted to do, how we wanted to present it, what we wanted to do as far as our image, what we wanted to do as far as the sound we wanted to go for, the bands that we wanted to work with, what crowd we'd be trying to put this out to, and so I think that it was great because it allowed us to really have a concise thing
Mhm.
that we could then put out, and it's evolved a little since then, but it's now more than ever what we always wanted to be. It's a very theatrical presentation and like very dramatic music, and then just I guess we like to take things slowly. We haven't played many shows, we haven't gone out on too many tours because we want to make sure that the people that we do go out on tour with and the people that we do play shows with are people that we vibe with and people that we fit aesthetically with and sound wise. So yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I
it
guess
definitely gave us time to reflect on all those things.
Yeah. I guess when like people start projects, especially like music projects, you have these ideas of what you want to be,
Hmm.
but at least at the very beginning, you're not 100% sure of how to execute them, and a lot of it is just trial and error. So I
Yeah,
guess that period was a good time for you to kind of make those missteps, not in the
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. No, and as far as like our local scene too, almost all the bands that were like trying to come up in the local scene were not doing like music videos, and they didn't really have like a set image that they wanted to go for as far as like the look of the band and all that shit. For us was always very core, like because all the things that we look up to are almost all bands that are trifectas. They got sound, attitude, and image. So it's like we wanted to do that. So we came out with music videos. I was like, at least like in our local scene, like it was like something that bands had not been doing that for like a little bit. At least bands that were like sounding like us. That's like really cool because it was like, oh shit, this came out of nowhere, because we also would make sure that we didn't want to share too much, like, oh, we're recording music and like all that. We kind of just wanted it to be like coming out of left field almost. So it would
Yeah.
seem like a concise thing already.
Yeah. And I bet that's kind of a difficulty as well. Like I guess you create these songs and you're just so excited about them that you want to put them out straight away. But, timing is so important, and actually releasing it
Yeah.
properly is so important.
Yeah, like I think that it's a kind of an impossible task to hide your progress as a band, but it's cool to try to do it because sometimes it really does make you like seem like that you came out like strong from the first, from the get. So that's like I think it's a really cool thing to have.
Definitely.
I don't know if we achieved it, but we definitely tried to.
Well, as soon as the album drops, I'm sure you'll find out, man.
Oh yeah.
Well, you mentioned it very briefly before, but some people listening might, know the band from the previous name you went under, which was L'exquisite Douleur.
Yeah.
I probably butchered the French, but that.
No, you're actually one of the few people that gets it right.
Oh, okay.
Most people say like linguini DeLorean and shit like that, bro.
Well, I'll pat myself on the back for that then. Yeah, so you decided to change the name and rebrand. Was that last year when those kind of changes took place?
Yeah. No, we wanted to change the name for a while. Ever since we kind of chose upon it, because it used to be my IG handle. So going from that to making it a band name was probably not the best decision. But at the time we fucked with it, so it was like, why not? And then as soon as we wanted to promote ourselves more and like put our shit out there more, we just had such a hard time getting people to remember our name or to even say it right. So it was like, dog. Like, and then when it came time to talk with people that were in the industry, they were like, "Have you guys thought about changing your name?" We're like, "Yeah, lucky, maybe we should." So then, we started brainstorming what names we wanted, and the Requiem was a name that I had around for a while. It was for a different project that I used to have. That it was like a heavier side project,
Right.
and we just thought it sounded cool. It was reminiscent of the bands that we love, sometimes even more so than bands from the scene, like the Strokes and fucking the Hives and shit like that, like older rock and roll bands from the early 2000s. And so we thought it had like that attitude to like with the behind it, and then Requiem means a funeral song, so it was very dramatic and fucking theatrical too. So we're like, fits perfectly. That's it.
Yeah, definitely fits. I mean, like the old name was a good name, but like you say, like not many bands will go via like a French name, and then it's just people probably remember the name, but they don't know how to
Yeah.
spell it, to look for it, to then find your music
Uh-huh.
and all that kind of stuff. So there's just so much, there's so many extra layers that then go into why you would choose a name. Like even something
Yeah.
as simple as, not to make it like business like, but SEO. Like
Hmm.
you want to be found online for fans to find
Yeah.
you and get more fans. So totally makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and it was hard to make logos look cool too because it was such a long name.
Yeah.
And it was a hassle.
I think from that period when you were under that previous name, I think some of those songs have kind of like been taken off as well. Is that just because maybe you weren't as proud of those songs to take them forward into this like new era, or?
Yeah, that's so what I was just saying about like we kind of don't like that our progression was out there,
Mhm.
because I
Right.
mean it's a good thing for without followed you at the time to know what you were doing and how you sounded, and for those to be like day one fans is cool. But I think that it would have been more harm than good for us to have those songs out now next to the album that we're gonna put out because the difference in quality and the difference in what we're attempting to do is very big. So I think that it would just it would really hurt us if someone were to like go look up our band and like they heard one of our earlier singles first before they heard our record because they'd probably be like, this sounds very bad. Like
True.
I don't know. So it's like we just didn't want that out there.
Well, it's not like you've kind of abandoned it completely because, I think your first single was, well, it's now become the name of the album, right? And the
Yes.
old band name is a track on the album, which is like a kind of instrumental interlude.
Yes.
So it's not like you've kind of like completely abandoned it. It's just those tracks.
No, no, no. The reason why we did that is because we love those songs so much that we feel they deserve a better presentation than what we were able to give it at the time. We were recording them in closets and like, with barely any mixing. So it's like it's just very different from what we're trying to put out now. So I think that we want to work on those songs eventually again, but with what we know now and with much better quality.
Yeah. I think there was like between obviously that era of band and this one that's coming in through now, the Requiem.
Hmm.
You've had also like a few lineup changes because I think you were originally like a 5-piece, but now you're a trio. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Was that just basically the other members just didn't want to do that anymore? They wanted to go and do other things.
I guess it was more so the fact that everything was happening so fast and it was a combination of personal differences and also I think that when you start working with a label, you kind of get this doom sense of that you don't want to fuck up and so you want everyone to be performing at the same level of like performance and also motivation like at
Mm,
least and some people get very distracted when they get put in situations like that and sometimes they get very nervous and I think they those members went through something like that so we just had to move on without them but it happens. I mean, as we were recording the record we were working with Steve and my bad, Steve Evans, and Steve was like, yeah, no, I've seen this happen a million times, like it's how it goes. Some people are, I guess, more ready for it than others.
yeah, because it is a big step then, like, especially when you were a band that kind of almost were born during the lockdowns, where you've
Hmm.
got like limited activity because you can't do anything anyway, to kind of then ramp up into not only start touring again, but also become a signed band to putting out an album on a label like Fearless.
Yeah.
It's not just like a small indie label. It's pressure, it's there's so many things that come with that.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think those situations when you're put in them, they kind of show everyone's character, and we just felt that like if we weren't getting along when we were recording the record at this B&B, like we would have never gone along on a
Yeah.
tour. Like they would have been crazy. So we were glad that everything that we needed to changed then. And the most important thing too is that the current members have always been the writers of everything, and the core like motivated ones to take these things to take it forward. So I guess
Yeah.
yeah, it all works out.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on an important point there. Like, you could take on into the band like the best guitar player, the best drummer, whatever. But if you don't get on with them, or, it's just not even like you don't get on with them, but you just don't really vibe too much in their company, and then you're going to go on tour for several days, several weeks, then what's that going to amount to?
it is. It's like having to live with someone basically when you go on tour. It's hard, you know, and even when you get along with people, it's hard. So it's like if sometimes people don't get along, it's even harder to be around that. So yeah, no. And then at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like this is something that for us at least, like there's some bands that have like other things going on and shit, but at least for us three, like we have no hopes pretty much in anything else that we do. Like music is our only way to fucking go. So we want it to be as easygoing and as I guess proactive as possible. So you know the fact that it's just three of us now, it makes it easier, and it's also I guess more it makes more sense because we're the three that wrote everything always.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works.
Yeah. So, signing with Fearless Records, as I said, not a small label. How did that signing even come about? How did they get in touch with you? Did you get in touch with them? How did that all come about?
I think it was mutual. I think our manager was hitting them up first, and then I think at first they didn't show much interest, and then like a little bit later they hit us back up, and then we started talking again. And we were talking with some other labels, but Fearless was the one that seemed the most like fitting because their current roster and their alumni is like all the shit that we grew up on and all the things
Mm.
that we look up to currently. So it was just like damn it, it'd be really cool to be with a label like that. And then when we got to meet their people and when we got to meet our A&R Cody, he was just I don't know, it was like instant really good friends. So I think it goes beyond just a work relationship that they also actually like enjoy our music and when we hung out with him over there in LA, it was just a great time. So it felt just the perfect choice for us.
Yeah. I mean, like, what's it like being on a roster like that, with so many of the scene's biggest names and, a label that helped boost
If
some of them into like their careers now, some of the biggest names in the scene.
Yeah, no, it feels sick. I mean, it's like I always dreamed about being in a situation like that when I was younger. So I think it's a really cool feeling, and it's reassuring that what I want for it to happen in the future now might get to happen too. Because I don't know, it's like it really was something that I only was able to ever dream about. Like I never thought I'd be in a situation like that.
And it's the label that's the home of all the Punk Goes Pop records as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What would if they were to bring that back? What song would you think you'd like to cover?
Oh man,
What do you think would go well with the Requiem sound? I guess.
probably a 1975 song.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Billie Eilish. I think there's just so much better pop music now than there was when they were doing the
Yeah.
fucking pop goes funk. Um, but mm,
Back then you had like bands like the Pussycat Dolls or Usher, like, and they were covering
oh
them.
yeah, yeah, no, back then there was Akon, T-Pain, and fucking Katy Perry. Like it was very different pop music.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the pop music now is so cool because it's very 80s oriented.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you got shit like The Weeknd and Miley Cyrus, which is straight fucking bass synths, and this is I don't know. It'd be really easy and cool to transpose that into to a rock song.
Yeah. And also kind of like the theatric kind of emo-ish kind of thing that you go for as well, kind of like put that
Yeah,
spin on it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the album, when did that writing begin for that? Was it a case of you had the intention of creating an album, or was it a case of you just started writing these songs and they kind of stacked up to this kind of stockpile? Like, you know what, we can kind of put these together in some way.
I think we were gonna put out our record independently first,
Right.
and so we started working. We had two songs for the record so far, and then when we finally signed with Fearless, we kind of scratched most of that. And we kept one of those songs, which is the first track off the record.
Mhm.
And then we started writing everything else with like putting out the record with them. So that took like a couple months, I would say like 3 4 months, and then we went to New Jersey on February of last year, and we went to Steve Evans' studio and we started recording the record and all that, and we wrote I think 3 more songs in that period of time.
Right. Was that kind of like, I don't know, were you already kind of working on songs to kind of, I don't know, fill out the album? Did you have too many songs? Were you not quite there yet?
No, we had them, but we had like the instrumentals, so we just had to finish writing like on top of it, like the
Okay.
melodies and lyrics, all that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we did a lot of obviously like post production and shit that we didn't think we were gonna end up doing, and some things just happen naturally. Like for example, the piano interlude that you mentioned earlier, that didn't happen until like the last week that we were there, and we were
Right.
so happy that it did because they're like, that this needed to be in the record, but it wasn't like initially thought of.
Yeah, because it transitions those two tracks quite well because
Yeah,
the I can't remember the names of my head, so sorry about that. But you've got the first song before that interlude, where it's a bit more like kind of upbeat and higher tempo, and then the kind of
yeah,
like transition to we're going to something a little bit slower now. It's not such a jarring kind of change. If
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah. No, it gives the album a little breather as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I love about the record is, it kind of has these influences and kind of tips its hat at 2000s emo bands, kind of like My Chem, The Used, Silverstein, AFI, Hawthorne Heights, that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
it's not like you're kind of trying to imitate them. It's kind of like wearing the influences on your sleeve and kind of putting a modern spin on it as well.
Yeah,
Were those kind of
it's
bands a big inspiration when making this album?
100% on everything. I mean, like every single musical project I've ever had has been inspired by those bands because it's simply those were the first bands I was introduced to when listening to music, and those are the first bands that like changed my view on music. I didn't think music was cool until I found bands like AFI and My Chem. You know what I mean? Like after finding those bands, I was like, oh shit, music's that fire. Like okay, like, and then I got into everything else after. But I think that it's gonna be on everything I do, no matter what. I like even if I were to try to like stay away from that sound, it would still come off in some way or another. Even like in the way that my voice sounds, like I learned how to sing by trying to learn AFI and the Used songs. So it's gonna sound like that regardless. I don't know how to do it any other way. And I'm happy that people appreciate it, even though it's in a nostalgic way for them because it reminds them of all the other stuff. It's still cool because it's even nostalgic for us to put out that music in a sense, even though, for us it's new and like we're doing it for the first time. It almost feels like if we had been around in that time, we might have been part of that scene. And that's a really good feeling to me because it's at the end of the day, all I want to do is something that I would have thought was cool when I was 16, 17.
Were there any particular albums, I guess, at the time when you were making the album that really influenced you when you were writing songs?
Yeah, December Underground, Three Cheers, Some Rise Against, The Offspring, Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy, just a bunch of bands like that, just big names of the scene.
Yeah. Well, here's a potential divisive question for you then.
Hmm.
What's the best My Chem album?
Oh man, objectively or personally, like what was my favorite or like what's the best?
We'll go with your favorite.
My favorite is Three Cheers. That was the first I
Correct
heard, and it
answer.
was like fucking best thing ever. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and no, it's sick.
Yeah.
But objectively, I feel like the Black Parade would take that
Yeah.
because that is like possibly one of the most theatrical records since like I don't know, I'd say like since very like 90s or early 2000s stuff like Antichrist Superstar and shit like that. Like I the Black Parade next to, like Queen records like
Mm.
they have nothing to envy of those. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like as an album experience, I would say, like especially like the concept and stuff, the Black Parade would be
Yeah.
above Three Cheers. But in terms of me and listening to it from start,
Yeah.
what do I enjoy more? Three Cheers. I think it's a
Likewise,
better.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And also, I don't know if this is a hot take as well, but I think December Underground is AFI's best album. But
Oh, 100%, yeah.
but people tend to go for Sing the Sorrow.
Yeah, I think that Sing the Sorrow is the same thing as like Three Cheers and Black Parade. I think
Mm.
Sing the Sorrow, I listen to it more than December Underground, but objectively, December Underground is like one of the greatest alternative rock records ever, maybe. They're
Yeah,
that good. AFI is that good. They've always been that good, and they always will be that good. Like,
yeah.
I know people have hated them so much for the last couple of years because they're like, oh, they've turned into like a Cure band. But it's like the Cure's fucking awesome. First of all, why does it even matter? They're both fucking sick ass bands.
Yeah. And what I like about that whole December Underground era as well is the sheer kind of presence of Davies Fringe.
Yes, dude, that Fringe was fucking iconic.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw that video, I was legit. I was like probably like fucking 8 years old or 9, and I saw it on MTV, and I was like, so I was like, that hair is so different. Just for context, I'm from Chile, South America, so like no one looked cool where I'm from. Like
Right.
everybody just looked very conservative and fucking boring. So I was like, dude, that's fucking sick. Bro got style. But yeah, no, I think that every single band from that time just had such a fucking iconic look to them. They looked like superhumans, like fucking heroes. I don't know, like rock stars, you know? And
Yeah.
it's, I think that like almost David Bowie-esque presence has been missing a lot in current music. I've been waiting for bands to bring that shit back for a minute now.
Well, it's your job now. You're one of,
Pff,
you're one of the bands, so you
oh no, I wish.
just need to
Like,
grow your fringe out. Get me in the band.
yeah, that'd be funny. But yeah, no, I think that was such a cool thing. Like what you said is the best word. It's presence. That bands back then used to have such cool presence.
Well, when you were writing the album, then we're talking about kind of influences there. Was it ever difficult when you were writing songs to try and find that sweet spot between influence and imitation?
I feel like as long as you put your like personal experiences and your personal little bit of an essence to anything you do, I don't think it counts as imitation. But I think that even bands that have done like things that anyone could say are like straight up imitation, it's if it's done well, like I feel like musically it's appreciated. For example, like Greta Van Fleet, like it's like
Yeah.
that's Led Zeppelin. It's no way to look at it as Led Zeppelin. It's like because that's not a band that takes influence from an era. That's a band that takes influence from one band.
Mm.
But it's like if you sit down, you listen to a Greta Van Fleet record, that shit's still pretty fucking good. It's not Led Zeppelin, but it's great. And then they've evolved in their own thing now. I think that it is better to get influence from an era though, because that way you stay away from people calling you out. You're just like this band.
Yeah.
I think for us, like I said earlier, like it's just natural for us to become so influenced by the era of like emo and alternative rock of the 2000s because that's what we grew up on. But I think that everything takes influence from everything at the end of the day. Even if you're not seeking to do something that's influenced by other shit, it'll people will be able to hear some influence or something in there regardless.
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason I ask is, some bands when they go into to writing or into the studio and stuff, they will very actively avoid listening to the genre that they make because they don't want to subconsciously potentially imitate someone else who's in the same genre. So like, let's say a pop punk band goes into a studio, they might not listen to any pop punk music. They'll just listen to like, I don't know, dance music or lo-fi music or rap music or whatever it may be. So yeah, I was just wondering like that ever kind of crossed your mind, but I mean, you're right.
I mean, in a way, but we already do that though, for because mainly our actual like the things that we listen to day and like what we bring it into our music, like me as a singer, Felipe as a guitarist, and Salem as a bassist. Like I think that it's packaged in like in an emo alternative rock sound because that's what we're going for, but I think there's influence of so much different shit in there because of just how much other music we listen to. Like the main music I listen to is like 70s punk, glam rock from the early 70s. I like the New York Dolls and the Damned. I like fucking the Libertines and like all the vibe for like the early 2000s indie. Like that's my favorite styles of music. I like that way more than anything else. Like now that I've gotten older, but and Salem, he only listens to goth music like every day. I think we probably listened to The Cure about like a million times in the month that we were recording the record, and just a bunch of bands like that, like Skinny Puppy. Like I can't even listen to Skinny Puppy anymore because of how much he plays it. And then Felipe listens to a lot of like Queens of the Stone Age and like electronic music, and he's really in tune with like a lot more of the modern music that's been coming out more than we are. So I think if I were to pinpoint some of those influences, for example, there's a little bit of Iron Maiden in one of our tracks, an elegy written on porcelain arms. That main riff, that's fucking Maiden right there. That's what we were thinking of when fucking writing. They were like, yeah, that sounds like something Iron Maiden would have done. So it's like there's just I don't know, there's influences all across the record. I think that in the acoustic song too, it's very easy to pinpoint it as well. The acoustic song that we put in the record for us has always been very reminiscent of Billy Corgan's work. So it's like Smashing Pumpkins and shit like that. So yeah, no, it wasn't hard for us to stay away from like how you said like imitation and all that.
Yeah, and if we talk about the album title, A Cure to Poison the World, why did you kind of go with that to title this collection of songs and this first album from the band?
You think why is that the name of the album?
Yeah, why did you pick that title? Yeah.
I guess it's an ode for sure to our first release, and then also because of that first release, the title of that song kind of made us want to create a concept around it because we thought it was like a cure to poison the world. It sounded cool, and then when COVID happened, people thought it was about fucking COVID. We were like, nah, nah. If anything, this is inspired from like fucking video games and movies, and
Yeah.
so mainly Resident Evil. So I think we just got really into that shit. And at the time, the Resident Evil remaster games were coming out,
Oh
and me
yeah.
and Felipe were playing that shit way too much. So it just naturally kind of kept going towards in that direction. I kept working on the concept that I wanted to make, and I like fell directly into like an idea of a pharmaceutical that creates a drug that is mass marketed to the world, and teenagers start taking it as like a recreational thing, and like it becomes super self-destructive because it's basically a combination of cyanide with ecstasy. So it kills you, but it makes you feel really good while it kills you. It's like a fucking like a pleasant suicide almost. And I thought that was like a really not too dark concept, but a little edgy. So I was like, that could be cool. And then I kept writing around that. And some of the songs that I started writing around that I really liked, like Elegy written on Personal Arms. That one was written based on the idea that someone is taken as like a test subject to test these drugs, and he's like in this hospital bed thinking all this. And so I was like, that's a cool one. And then Diary of a Masochist, we had written that song from the perspective of wanting to write a song about like an archetype of Elizabeth Bathory, or like a woman that's like a countess slash serial killer slash like vampire. I don't know, some nerdy shit that we thought was cool at the time. So
Yeah.
but then we were like, oh, we could combine that with like an older version of the Cure to Poison the World. Maybe like the first time it was introduced, it was like in the early 1900s. So then we just started playing with all those ideas, and then we started putting the concept together. And I think it's present in all of our music videos so far, and it's present in some of the songs of the record. But sadly, we couldn't do a full concept record because when we started working on it, some of the other songs were just too different sonically, and the vibe that we were putting on them as far as like lyrics and the way the melodies went was just too different from the other songs. So we kind of went for more of a theme with this whole Cure to Poison the World thing rather than a concept.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why the record's called The Cure to Poison the World, because it all started from that
Yeah.
idea. And I think that when we put out the CDs in the booklet, there's like all that like explained with like images and shit. So it'll be
Okay.
easier for people to understand it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I was going to kind of touch on, maybe being like a loose concept there, because I noticed when the final track ends, like
Mhm.
the line is the start of the first track. So if
Yeah.
someone did that, it just goes into like a loop, which I think was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, we wanted to do that really bad, and I really wanted to do that because I've always loved spoken word stuff on some songs. I loved when Marilyn Manson did it, and when I was a kid, I used to like fucking love that. And then most recently, I remember Creeper doing it, and I thought it was so cool. I was like, that's sick. So I wanted to hear that from more bands, and I hadn't in a while. So I was like, we should do that. Do it at the fucking end of the song. Yeah, fuck it. And then we did it as like a callback to the very first track. So in our hopes that people would enjoy it so much, I feel like, yeah, repeat,
Yeah.
replay the record.
And it looks like as well, like I like the cover artwork, and I guess from what you've just said then with the kind of loose theme of that the pharmaceuticals, that kind of also presents itself somewhat in the cover. You've got the kind of like a half a butterfly, but it's an X-ray, and it's kind of like the bones that you would see in like a human or like a mammal of some kind.
Yeah. No, the medical look is like very present in all of the artwork that we'll be putting out, and a lot of the merch that we'll be putting out too. I think our current merch drop included the vials with like the fake drug in it, with the ether cyanide. That's what we ended up calling it. So yeah, no, it's definitely a cool idea that we had for us, and we wanted to build so much on it, and we ended up doing pretty cool things with it.
Yeah, I can definitely see the Resident Evil influences there that you mentioned. Like last year, I made a challenge to myself. What are you, a PC gamer? Are you a console gamer?
PS5.
Yeah, I've got a PS5 as well. So I made a mission to get the platinum trophy on all of the Resident Evil games.
Let's go.
it was a task, but I did it.
Oh man, wait, the remaster version or the other ones?
So I did the remastered 1, 2, and
Okay.
3. And then I did Original 4, 5, 6, 7, Village, Revelations 1 and 2.
Holy shit,
The
dude.
only one I've not done is the remake of 4. I've not played that yet, but
Oh, I'm playing that one right now. I
oh
haven't
yeah,
finished it yet. I've barely gotten to Ramon Salazar. Like I've barely gotten to the little evil guy. But dude, that's so fucking sick.
it was difficult, but I got there.
How many hours you put in that?
I don't want to say. It's embarrassing. But
Because like I think the last time I played 3, it was 4 hours to finish it, like as fast as I could with like as much shit as I could do, and I had so much left to do.
yeah.
Especially with the challenges, the shooting challenges.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Those
yeah.
are always a bitch and a half, bro. Like it's such a cool game though.
Yeah,
We love Resident Evil more than anything, and Silent Hill. Those are like our two favorite shared franchises that all three of us love.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what was 6 was a slog. I think 6 is terrible.
Yep. It's an understatement. Okay, especially like because 5 was like I don't know, 5 got shit around the time I remember when I was a kid. It was like people were sitting on it, some people were liking it, but I love it because it's so different. Like just
It's
the
more
fact
like
that you're
action,
in
isn't it?
Africa, it's
Yeah,
like what the hell? That's like completely different game, but they still pulled it off. It was so cool.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I
I
don't
did not
necessarily.
like the moving of the rock though. I remember that vividly. Like
Oh
the
yeah,
moving the
yeah. I remember
rock in
that
the
bit.
volcano was a bit unrealistic, but
Oh,
other than
he's
that, it was
punching
fine.
it. He's punching
Yeah,
the
you're
boulder.
punching
Yeah,
the rock.
yeah, yeah. I didn't dislike 5, but it just wasn't very Resident Evil. It's just very
Mhm.
action and linear. Like you
Yeah,
can go off and explore. But yeah, 6 was just. I didn't even know what was going on at one point.
yeah, no, this is bad.
Yeah,
I think I've only played 6 once, and that's probably the only Resident Evil game that I've only played once. I played it with my sister, and I thought that was cool because 5 had that too, where you could play 2 players.
yeah. That
I
was
think
good.
5 I also played with my sister for the first time, but 6 was just like we were both like this is not good. Like what is going on? They nerfed Leon, and then like it was just I don't know. It's some of the there's no like new zombies either. There's nothing like
Yeah.
that different.
I think the idea was ambitious because you obviously had like the 4 campaigns that kind of linked into one another, like all these different
Hmm.
characters like linked into one another at some point in the story. So
Hmm.
it was a good idea, poor execution, in my opinion.
Yeah.
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 But going back to the band, what are your plans for the rest of the year? Obviously, dropping the album. Any tours on the pipeline? Like, what's going on? Where can people find you?
Yeah, we have some shit coming up. I think that we got a little run with Rizmi Razor that we'll probably be announcing soon. By the time this is out, it'll probably be announced. So that's gonna be fun because we love Rizmi Razor's music and we've played with them before. They're all really cool people, so it'd be sick to get to know them better and play shows with them. We're doing I think all of the East Coast pretty much. So it's gonna be fun. And then we're doing a show with Stabbing Westward, which is like it's really fucking cool band from the early 2000s, and they haven't been here in Florida in a while. And there's like their first show here, so I think that's gonna be really cool for me because I loved that band growing up. I always thought
Yeah.
they were sick as fuck. Other than that, we don't have anything else confirmed, but we're trying to get some other cool stuff. But like I said, like earlier, like everything that we want to do as far as shows, it's gonna be with bands that we really love and bands that we really want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks very much for your time, Damien. Really appreciate it. And
Of course, man.
just in the album, Nerding Out Over Resident Evil. Yeah, best of luck with the album release. I know it's going to go well. Like I say, it's a great little throwback, but modern
Hmm.
twist on it as well. Before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your day,
Hmm.
any final words, anything you want to say or plug? Floor's yours.
Yeah, sure. Our Instagram is the Requiem Band, and in there we have our link tree with all our other socials. You can find our music on every streaming service, and you can also join our Discord through Instagram. We post it often, so that's about it. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah,
Nice to meet
sure.
you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, take care of yourself. And if you ever come over to the UK, yeah, we'll just I'll catch you then.
Hell yeah, man. Thank
Yeah,
you. Till the next
cool.
one.
Yeah,
Bye.
take care. Bye. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast, then please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. If you want to support the podcast further, you can go and give it a follow on social media, pick up something from the merch store, or subscribe to the Patreon to get early access to episodes. All the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again, hopefully catch you on the next one, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.